Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we're going to be changing it up a little bit. Here behind me I have my grandfather's 1984 Chevy El Camino. Typically, you know, we're working on the EV project, which is in the garage right now. But he came to me and said he has a little bit of a fuel leak issue up around the carburetor. So he trusts me enough to take a look at it. We're going to do a quick walk around so you guys can get a good look at it. And then we're going to jump in that engine bay and see if we can solve his gas leak problem and get him back on the road. Alright, so we're going to do a quick walk around here. But this is his 84 El Camino. It's a nice blue color, a two-tone silver and blue. Got the nice bed liner in it. It's a Conquista edition. Really good shape, good color. I've always liked this car, so I'm glad he's letting me work on it just a little bit for him. So let's get underneath this hood and see if we can take a look at that gas leak. Alright, so we're going to get in here and pop the hood. The door is much heavier than the Fiat. Here it is. And the latch is right here. If I can grab it. There it goes. Ah, holds itself up. Yeah, I'll say that's pretty clean. Yeah, it looks really good in here. New AC compressor. He's got the vintage air system, which is really nice. It tucks all that old school AC system from where it used to sit here. It's tucked up behind the dash. It's a really nice setup there that he's got. Really clean in here. I'm not sure exactly what size this motor is. I'd have to look at the numbers on it and find out. But the issue we're in here for today is that right there. So there's some sort of gas leak going on under here. I don't know if it's this gasket underneath the carburetor, but we're going to pop off this air cleaner and take a look. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is pop off this air cleaner. What is the saying? Chrome gets you home. What do we have here? I'm going to put this back on there. If you know me, my motto is put as much together as possible so you don't forget where it goes. Alright, got that air cleaner put up behind us. Looks like we have a Holley carburetor, so that's a good one. Yeah, it's hard to tell exactly where the leak is coming from because you don't see any gas along the bottom here. Make sure y'all can see that. Yeah, so there's the diaphragm down here doesn't have any gas leaks in it. It's just all right here. So I think what we should do is we'll disconnect the fuel line right here. Got a bunch of his throttle linkage here. It's hard to tell just from first glance at it. The car's been off for a while, so it's not going to burn me or anything. Yeah, this looks like it's leaking from the front here. So let's start taking off the top. Let me see, I have to convert from my normal metric on the Fiats to standard, so I think these are half. Yeah. So I'm going to take these off. At least loosen these up. I know the torque spec on these isn't much. I think it's like 12, maybe 12 foot-pounds. But you can see the moisture on the bottom of that bolt. So that may be an indicator of where we're leaking from. Not sure. Nope, not quite. You know, I would not be surprised if this leak was just because it wasn't tightened down enough, maybe. I can tell he's had some good work in here. He's got a Gates belts. He's also got all the hoses or Gates. So he spent some good money on good pieces in here. So while we would have a leak, I'm not sure. It's even got what looks like some on the back. He's got a little bit of a leak out of his EGR valve here on the side. It's a lot bigger of an engine compartment than I'm used to. More room to work. So I'm used to being the cramped, confined compartments of our project, which is probably a fraction the size, in overall dimension at least. This one's got a washer on it, but the other ones don't. So that's interesting. I don't know if the other ones were forgotten to be put on or what. So let's disconnect. We've got our vacuum advance here. We've also got where the oil burns off. Still have our fuel line hooked up. Our linkage is still connected. Pretty straightforward ways for it to come off. So I'm going to take off these little pieces here. It's not very complicated. I'm just going to unhook them real quick. And once we get it off, we'll take a better look. Alright, so I've got everything disconnected. Got the vacuum advance is disconnected. The EGR valve is disconnected. This is an interesting cap piece on there. Clearly needs a new gasket on there because that's should be nice and tight on there. All the bolts are out. All the throttle linkage is disconnected. The spring is disconnected. And I think everything's free. So I'm going to lift it up, carry it over to the workbench, and then we're going to go over to the bench and see what's going on. Alright, so let's get in here and take a look at this very quick. You can see the outline. Well, if you can look up there. You can see the outline. You see there's a tear here, rough patches here. This is definitely, yeah. I mean, you can see this is not the source of the leak, but this looks like it's some sort of composite material. I'm not sure what that's made of. If you know what this is made of, just say it in the comments down below there. But the intake looks good, looks clean, not all dark and gunky, that's good. So let's take this over to the bench and take a look. Alright, so we can take a better look in here with the light. It's a little bit brighter for us. But you can see how it's got a little bubble here in the middle. And you can tell where it's kind of hard to tell in the video here, but there's a big bubble here along this edge, and then you see where it's kind of been soaked up into it. And you can see on the bottom where it's conformed to the intake. Let's look on the bottom of the carburetor. I know there's still gas in here, so I'm afraid to turn it over. Let me grab a tub here. Alright, we can use this. We're just going to flip it over. I know gas is going to come out, but so be it. Alright. There's that bowl emptying out. We'll make sure to refill that before we try to restart the car. Oh, it's from the, like, where the heck is that leak coming from? It's coming from the, right here where it goes in. Alright. So on the bottom, it's got that same kind of material. And I don't know if you're going to pick it up in the camera, but see right here how thin of a space there is there. It's like razor thin where the impression is. And this is the general area of where the leak is coming from. But I don't know if that's necessarily what's causing the leak. because if it was, it'd be pretty apparent on the end here that there'd be a gap where the fuel's been leaking through, but it's been pressed. The other problem I have, let's line these up and see. It's like a spacer, and I don't know, because there's no... See, now the problem is I don't know if that's from... Because that was down here in this bottom corner. You see how it's all wet there? I don't know if that's from when we just dumped it. But you can see, if I can get you all in close enough here, where there's a little cutout, not necessarily cutout, but a low spot, and that could be where the leak is coming from. After wiping it off here, it is depressed a bit. Alright, so you can see it here. I'll bring y'all in closer real quick. So, right here, you can see where it's all black. And that's the gasoline soaking up the dirt around it. And you can see the bottom of the carburetor really needs to be cleaned up. Because that's like stuck on there. A good wipe will clean it up, but that's the source, and I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to be coming from. You see there's a little bit here too, but I don't know if that's residual or not. So let's do a little bit more investigating, and then we'll see what we can find. Alright, so looking at our dark marks on these sides, because this is the side that was leaking, right? So when we look at these, we can go back to the car and look on the intake. Now we see all here is what flowing out, and you can actually see there's still some there. But when we go to the side, we can see where it's also been coming out. And on the back, let's come around here. So when we look on the back, you can see that it's just been seeping out from all sides. And by the looks of that gasket, that is not what looks like modern material. It definitely looks like it's older material, and I really hope, for the sake of this car, that it's not the original gaskets from the 80s, because it's definitely like that cardboardy material, like paper layers. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to go clean up these sections, clean up the bottom here, run to the parts store, and then get some new gaskets and see what we can do. I think that's going to solve our problem. We'll clean up the intake on there, and then we'll get it all situated. So let's do a little bit of cleaning, and then we'll run to the store. Alright, so we just got back from the parts store, and I took the old ones with me just to make sure that I had the right size. And of course I went to AutoZone first, and they didn't have any anywhere near me. Being in a major city, you think they would. But I ended up going to O'Reilly's, which I should always just go to in the first place. And they had this. This is the part number 6005. Comes in a complete kit, makes it super easy. It's got the aluminum spacer, so it won't rust. And it comes with a top and bottom gasket, and comes with studs to mount the carburetor on there, just in case our factory, well, I wouldn't call them factory, but our bolts don't fit it. So, one thing I am going to do is, you can see there's a casting number here and the logo here. I'm going to fill it in with some RTV. I'm not a big proponent of this kind of stuff, but I'm going to use it to fill it in here, because if I don't, you can see how thin of an edge there is to create a seal. Same on the casting number here, and that's not enough to make me feel better. So I'm going to fill it in with some RTV, let it sit, and then we'll put the gasket on, and we should be okay. You know, I got that from Junkyard Digs, Kevin and his page. If you haven't heard of him, you definitely need to go check him out. I'll put him up here in the corner to his channel. Definitely check him out. Funny guy, good people. So what I did is I made sure to take the old one with me, and all the holes line up. So that's good. Same with the gaskets, it all lines up. so we shouldn't have any issue with having a leak anymore. The only difference is it's going to be a little thicker than what was on there, so you can see the difference. Now the only reason that would really, it's hard to do a demonstration like that, but the only reason that this would really cause a problem is if we have crazy, has to be dead straight linkage. And luckily for this Holley carburetor that's on it, we are not that restricted. It's all on a cable, not necessarily the wire, but a little bit finer where we have some flexibility to play with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill these in, and then we're going to clean up the surfaces and try and put it on. So let me clean this up, get that on there, and we'll go on to the next part. Alright, so while I was away, I sprayed some brake clean on here. And brake clean is like the best thing for everything. So I'll just spray it on there. Don't want any in my drink. And we're just going to clean the bottom here. The most important part is along the edges, around the screw hole. It's kind of hard to tell from there, but you see all this black. I want to make sure that I get all that off. In the middle, it's not really that big of a deal, just because our spacer or our gaskets are wide open compared to the old one that has all the holes. It doesn't really matter if it has the holes or not. It's because the intake is dual plane like that. It's not that big of a deal. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time, zip through this, clean this really quick, and then we'll start going back to the engine bay. I did put the RTV in those gaps. I'm letting that sit, let it start to solidify a little bit before we put any pressure on it, and then we should be able to go. So I'm going to grab a razor blade, and we are, I guess I can use this, are going to clean this up. Yeah, any of these little ridges are going to be a problem, so we need to make sure we get all these little pieces off, because that's just a gap for a vacuum leak, and that's robbing horsepower from the car, and performance, fuel efficiency, all those things can be lost through that vacuum leak. So it's already starting to look a lot better. You want to make sure you don't score it. You want to just make sure you're nice and smooth, nice flat, even pressure, and it'll slowly work all that off. There shouldn't be any deep gouges or anything like that, and that's what will help with it. And it should be, for the most part, nice and shiny on the bottom. It doesn't have to be, showroom perfectly clean, but as long as it looks kind of like that. See how it's nice and clean. We got rid of all the black around it, and so that shouldn't cause any more issues. So let's go clean the intake, and we're going to do the same process. I'm just going to use the brake clean and a little light pressure on the scraper and get any excess gunk off of it, and it'll be all set to start mating the surfaces. So let me clean that, and then we'll move to the engine bay where we can start. Alright, so we just got done cleaning up the surface here, all nice and smooth. You can see there's a little bit of discoloration here, but that's from the gas leak being for so long, and it's started to eat away at the metal. So we got that all cleaned off, and now we have a nice clean surface, no deep gouges, no scoring, anything like that. I also took the brake clean and I cleaned up all around here, all the way around, just to make sure that we didn't have any other leaks in the future, so that way we can identify them. So let me grab all the pieces and we'll start reassembly. Alright, so I'm going to end up using the provided studs with the kit. Before I do anything else, I want to make sure that we are set. Yeah. No resistance that go in there. I want to make sure that the thread is the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some blue thread locker on here on the bottoms only. That way when, or if we ever have to take out the carburetor again for whatever reason, the studs will stay, but the carburetor will be able to come off. So a little too much on that one. I'm going to clean up the excess there. That's when I need a rolling workbench to keep it with me all the time. So, alright, get those in there by hand. I don't want to over torque it and bottom it out, because that's when you can crack the intake. So I want to make sure that I don't do that. Just going to whiz through these really quick. So if you have any issues with getting the threads down in there, they're not very even, or you're getting a lot of resistance, do a thread chaser, chase out the threads and clean them out. If you don't have a chaser kit like that, you can just take an air gun and blow them out. Usually it's just loose items, loose particles that are down there clogging it up. So those are all in there pretty good. Awesome. So we're going to put our first gasket down. It's kind of hard to tell, but there is like a sharp side and a fuzzy side. I don't know if the camera picks that up very well. So I like to keep the sharp side down so we have a crisp connection with the intake. That way we don't have any soft edges. It's where the cut was made, and it's in there. So we're going to put that on there. We're going to put our spacer on. Our RTV has been setting this whole time, so we should be okay there. You can kind of see some of it coming through. So it's a nice good connection. We don't have any of those hang off points. And what I like about this is that it does hang off some. You can see it on the bottom and on the top, where my finger can go all the way in, and we have plenty of coverage all the way around. So that's really nice. We're going to put the carburetor on. We're just not going to cinch it down or anything. We're just going to set it on there. It is a little taller, so when it comes to the linkage, you want to make sure that everything moves freely. You want to make sure that it's not hitting anything, and we are having no issues whatsoever. Awesome, no binding up. So I'm going to take a second to reconnect everything. Maybe not everything. Let me do it this way. I'm going to reconnect the throttle linkage and then where it needs to go. And I'll make sure everything's lined up with that. And then I'll reconnect everything else so we don't have any binding. So give me a second. Alright, so I got all of our linkage together. It's just hand tight. I don't have anything cinched on or anything like that. And we have no interference whatsoever. Everything still flows. Even though our spacer brings it up probably ½ an inch, we have no binding, nothing's catching, we're not having any issues, so nothing's fallen off. That's a good start. So we'll connect our vacuum advance here. Well, before I do that, let's put the bolts back on. That way I don't have to fight the bolts. So the kit comes with a washer. Make sure you put the smooth side down. It's kind of hard to tell, but there's a smooth side and a bubbled side. So you want the smooth side down. Nut on. I went online to see what the torque specs are, because these corners on the carburetors can be very thin sometimes. I'm not saying that this one is, but yours may be. So what I would recommend is what a lot of the manufacturers call for is a crisscross pattern, just like you would do a tire, putting your wheel back on, something like that, in an X pattern, star pattern, however you want to call that. And that'll put even pressure across the carburetor. That way you don't have, for example, the front being too tight and it kind of bows down the carburetor. So I couldn't find a specific torque spec, So what I'm going to do is, the most common I've seen is about 12 foot-pounds. So what I'm going to do is start out at 6. I'm going to do a little bit more for considering loss in our extension. So I'm going to do 7 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. So I'm going to go here first. I feel like that's pretty tight. So I'm going to go here. This one I wish I had a digital one because I have a feeling I have it the wrong number. So go all the way back to 0. Let's try that one. I think that's right. Yeah, that's 7. I had it on 17. So I always check. There's 1. Yeah, always check. If you can get a digital one, I highly recommend it. This is just a mechanical. One more. Alright, that's 7 all the way around. So I'm going to up it to 13. I'm just accounting for the loss in the extension, because when you have the extension it kind of throws off what the torque is. So I'm going to keep the same pattern. One there. It's a little hard to get in that corner there. Just not used to this big old engine bay. Usually I can reach everything from one side. Alright, got that figured out. I just didn't have it lined up right. Alright, so we've got the ETR going back in. I forgot to get the gasket to fix that. So we will get that next time. Have to go back, get a couple of things tomorrow. So that'll be on that list. Vacuum advance going on here. We didn't have anything on the back side. Looks good, good. We need to reconnect our fuel line. It came underneath here and up. Right here. He's got a double clamp, which I think is a little overkill, but I guess better safe than sorry. Alright, those are both pretty tight. I'm going to clean up a little bit of the parts and the tools that I have up here, get them out of the way. Then I'll let it run over a little bit, refill that fuel bowl, and we'll give it another shot and see how it goes. Alright, so I'm going to hop in and it's going to crank for a little bit, let that pump fill up the float bowl, and then we'll get it running and see where we're at. So here we go. Alright, well that was a lot easier than I thought. Alright, so hopefully you can hear me. But we're looking at the bottom here. My light won't flood you out. But I don't see, I'm going to watch that fan, but I don't see any leaks. back there. Yeah, I don't see anything. Alright, so I don't see anything. So I'm going to let it run for a little bit, and then let it get to temperature, let everything open up. Make sure that bowl is completely filled, and we'll check in later. Alright everybody, I'm letting it run, but as of now, it's been a few minutes. I haven't seen anything form. So I'm just going to let it keep going, let it break in a little bit, let the heat really get that gasket to settle, let the R2V heat up, and let it get that to settle also. But I think that's everything. No more leaks. Thanks for sticking around, guys. I'm just going to let it run and let it fill back up and let it get to temp. But otherwise, we're all done, all set. Appreciate you hanging out and coming along for the adventure. Until next time, we'll see you. Just make sure you comment, like, subscribe. If you have any questions, I'll help you out. But then, yeah, until next time, guys, we'll see you.